Let's bring Roger on. Roger, what is the biggest thing on your mind as you join me on this Sunday evening? Well, nice hat, by the way.
Thank you. It is, we're in the seersucker season, so if one does not do it now, when would one do it? First of all, let me say that your caller, Frank, is absolutely right. The USS Liberty was attacked by the United States government in cooperation to a reluctant Israeli government with the approval of President Lyndon Baines Johnson. This is a lunatic move that would cause the lives of Americans, but it is a false flag that was intended to inspire a war. So the caller is absolutely right, and the mainstream media has blocked this piece of history out. There's an excellent new book out by Philip Nelson, the man who wrote the quintessential 2-volume biography of Lyndon Johnson, very much like my own book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, which in the paperback edition has 2 chapters on this woeful and disgraceful chapter in American history.
Well, and that certainly sheds more light on the reason as to why they had to remove JFK from office as well.
It does. It's interesting because CNN has egg on their face this week.
Oh, my.
Being forced to essentially retract a story that alleged improper influence peddling or maneuvering for favor between Trump associate Anthony Scaramucci and the president himself. The CNN had to completely withdraw their question. Scaramucci, who is widely admired and liked among conservatives and among the Trump movement leaders, was blocked initially by Reince Priebus, who clashed with him during the campaign. I think Priebus's problem was Anthony's direct access and the great affection that the president has for him. He is now demanded this retraction, and congratulations to him. I expect him to be now moved to a suitable government position. So that's the genesis of this embarrassment for CNN. Meanwhile, there is chaos at Fox. You were just talking a few minutes ago about that other cable news network. Owen?
Well, I want to hear your take on kind of a narrative that I'm building up during this show. I think that there's a big psyop going on right now in the mainstream media colluding with the Democrats to, with fake news, try to oppress our victories, suppress our momentum, suppress everything that we're doing, to think that we're not winning, we're failing, when we are kicking ass right now. And I'm thinking that certain installments of the Republican Party right now, specifically Reince Priebus and Paul Ryan, are kind of falling for that narrative, falling for that fake news, and thus not getting behind President Trump. What do you think of that?
Well, it's possible, or they are aware of that Trump may be more popular at the grassroots than they concede, but that he's just bad for business long term and short. It's a lot of egos here.
So there's maybe a little greediness involved as well.
Well, but the point here is that Donald Trump never kissed the derrieres of these exalted leaders. Harumph. I mean, Washington is broken. The best thing for a majority congressional Republican would be to have a Democratic president. Now you're an actual player.
The Democrats are hopeless right now. You know, they're eating their own. CNN is failing. Nancy Pelosi is failing. We're winning. We are literally winning, and they're trying to tell us we're not. It's unbelievable. Devastating victories left and right with every hearing, and they still don't get it, folks. We'll be right back with Roger Stone. Speech rally today. Patriots marching against political violence. To no one's surprise, Antifa wanted no part of that. The Democrats wanted no part of that. They're actually pushing political violence right now, endorsing that. But, Roger, you actually had a bit of a cameo at that rally. Roger, I'm glad that you stand against political violence. Thank you for that.
Well, I unfortunately, based on some conversations with those in law enforcement, decided not to go because of planned violence. Yes.
So you had, are you saying you had some intel that there might have been somebody planning some violence against you?
We believe that based on some conversations I have with law enforcement, and I frankly don't want to endanger other people. But that we do have, I must tell you, an exponential spike in the number of weekly death threats I get since the success of the Netflix documentary Get Me Roger Stone. So it is a manifestation of that. There's a very ugly piece by some woman at the Huffington Post this week. I won't tell you her name or the name of the piece. You might go read it, but it's horrific and vicious in its scope. An ugly piece by a fellow named Mike Kelly at the Bergen Record. So when people start to resent our success, and in this case, I think my role in helping the president, the crazies come out.
Well, it's pretty obvious, and when you can't even go to a free speech rally because of violence threats from the left, we've reached a tipping point here, and I think something needs to be done. Who knows where this goes next? We rolled the B-roll of you being on the phone with Jack Posobiec, actually, and so you were still able to make your speech. But it's just amazing to me that we can have all of these people in Hollywood, all of this media portraying the assassination of Trump. I think the final showing of Julius Caesar is tonight. President Trump getting assassinated every night for like 2 weeks straight in that despicable performance. I mean, where does this end, Roger?
No, I mean, it is naked in their use of the media to incite, to provoke, and to promulgate violence. But Owen, I mean, you're a hard charger. You remind me very much of a young Richard Nixon when he had communist spy Alger Hiss in his sights. And I think you understand this is a two-pronged punch. First, they promulgate this line that is consistent with radical Islam. Then they censor our ability through the internet, through their entire suppression campaign to censor the internet, brand us as fake news, and use other manipulations of our algorithms, a dozen other smart computer tricks to limit our reach to the patriots out there who would rise up and support a Donald Trump.
It's so true. I mean, what you said is so true. But it goes beyond that. Not just trying to suppress the truth on the internet or suppress and censor patriots on the internet. They are literally trying to suppress reality. They are literally trying to censor reality. They're literally trying to intimidate us from bringing reality to the people. Roger, we're actually joined by Alex Jones now. We've got a Master Jedi Council on board now as Alex Jones joins us. Alex, what's on your mind this evening?
Well, I'm just here with my family, halfway taking the day off and listening to you guys. I just wanted to call in. When we won the election on November 8th, I looked at Roger and I said, the war has just begun. So I'm not somebody that's overly positive. Roger's like, hey, celebrate a little bit. And I said, no, now they're going to hit us with everything they've got. They've been arrogant before, putting out their fake polls, believing their own propaganda. But I can tell you, Trump killing TPP, Trump killing the carbon tax, the Paris Accords, Trump cutting back the illegals coming across 43%. That's an old number. The new numbers are even higher. Reportedly coming out next week, exposing the election fraud, making the big banks loan to small businesses and individual people, bringing $3 trillion plus back to the stock market. Now it's $400 billion in new jobs in just 5 months. 6 months. This is unprecedented. So I'm not in some love affair with Donald Trump. Quite frankly, when I used to halfway pay attention to him, I thought he was some hotel owner, and some guy that hung out with the Clintons. I didn't like it. It's what's being delivered and how the enemies are so upset and how they're panicking and how they're going crazy and how they're going insane. So, I called Roger this morning and I said, will you come on with Owen? I said, sure. He said, sure. I said, well, this is a big victory lap. I mean, they're saying in major news articles, Associated Press, Philadelphia.com, that, yeah, okay, Roger Stone wasn't a Russian agent. The Democrats want the Russian agent stuff dropped. They know it's killing them. Cernovich, who they said was with Stone and some Russian agent, totally made up. The Pissgate deal is totally fake. The Democrats won't give the FBI any of the info because it's all fake. They're the ones. It's coming out that they were the ones. It's coming out Obama wouldn't allow the investigation because he knew Hillary and himself were up to their eyeballs in it. This is huge victory lap. And our problem is, as libertarians, as patriots, as conservatives, we don't victory lap. We're always moving on to the next thing. But we have to sit there and celebrate this. And when we hear all this news that we're being defeated and we're being shut down. That's the last gasp of them trying to affect the weak-minded. We're having absolute devastating victories right now across the board, and American energy is coming way back. That devastates. And I'm not against Russia, but I'm sorry, it's business. That hurts the Russian economy, helps ours. It hurts Saudi Arabia, helps ours. Trump's doing everything for America. That's why the globalists are so absolutely, completely pissed. And so all these special interests that thought they had dominated America, mounted our head on the wall, they're just mad that we have a president that isn't out to get us. So this is a time for celebration. This is a really big deal happening. And, of course, they're doubling down and saying that, it's the end of the world for us and it's all over and blah, blah, blah. We have more listeners and more revenue than we had a month ago before the stupid Megyn Kelly all-out media assault. They hit us everything they've got. They're hated. They're despised. The American people have broken with them. They're like desperate clowns pushing all the race narratives and the rest of it. Back to you guys breaking all this down, but this is a really, really important time. The problem is they may launch some big false flags to try to blame the Patriot movement and some other things. So back to Roger Stone, Owen Sawyer, and the whole Infowars family. And that is a typical move. If you look at history, if you're facing an absolute defeat in illegal activity that you've been doing, you try to stage some big event or start a war in order to deflect the attention away from you. But Roger, I want to hear your opinion on this that Alex just brought up, talking about the DNC not willing to cooperate with the FBI or the DHS. How is it? I mean, have you ever seen in your history of being involved in American politics, have you ever seen a situation where if you're looking at something, say, Russian hacking or Russian collusion, and you separate things onto a partisan level, and you have one side waging against the other side, pointing the finger, saying Russian hacking, Russian collusion, when there's none there? Meanwhile, it's all sitting on their side. They're the ones obstructing justice. Based on all the testimonies, everything we've heard, the DNC won't cooperate with DHS or FBI into the investigation of this, but they want to find out about this Russia thing. When is reality going to hit home? When is the DNC going to be called to task?
Well, I think it's a superb question. Also extraordinary this week, stunning, really, bombshell proof of Russian influence in the presidential campaign of John McCain. Seems that, according to Circa News, in a stunning piece, they learned from multiple credible sources that the intelligence services twice warned the presidential candidate, McCain, not to meet with a certain individual that they deemed to be a Russian asset. The gentleman was brought to the table by none other than Rick Davis, McCain's campaign manager, and former associate of my friend, Paul Manafort. So later on, a Russian asset would end up at the Republican Institute under John McCain. And ultimately, when this became public, would be discharged. And John McCain has been a harsh critic of Donald Trump, saying that there's collusion by the Russians in the Trump campaign. I think he's driven by bitterness and a demand for revenge, because I really saw the CNN story and this story on McCain to be the two big stories this week.
Well, McCain meets with Russians. McCain meets with quote-unquote moderate rebels in Syria. Who is Shiva Ayyadurai? He is running Trump creature Elizabeth Warren, a real Indian versus a fake Indian. It is quite a story going on out there, and Dr. Shiva is going to help us drain that swamp. ShivaForSenate.com, VAShiva.com. I would read you his resume, but it would take the entire segment, so I'm just going to bring Dr. Shiva on with me. Doctor, the last time we spoke last week, it feels like it was light years ago now, the way that I'm like a speeding bullet through the news timeline. So I just want to bring you on and let's get to it. What do you think is the biggest thing? What do you want to talk about? In fact, how about this? The last time we spoke on air, you issued multiple challenges to Elizabeth Warren. You offered to challenge her to a debate. You offered to donate your lab to her team to prove her claims, or at least the claims being made by some of her donors about GMOs. Have you gotten a response from Elizabeth yet?
No, we've got no response, Owen, because the reality is, I think she's extremely afraid of a competitor like me. She would rather have some, career politician go head on head against her. This whole, I think the word you use, drain the swamp, and it means really draining the swamp of Elizabeth Warren, lawyer, lobbyist, career politician, fake, a liar who essentially presents herself as a fighter but hasn't really fought for anyone except herself. And then, and similarly, you have the, career politicians who do the exact same thing. So I think Massachusetts is literally, I say we're behind enemy lines here. Our office is literally in Cambridge. I have this beautiful building that I own. In fact, downstairs, we rented to a Democrat, Catherine Clark. I'm happy to take her money. But the reality is we're literally behind enemy lines.
How dare you, you evil capitalist?
Well, we did this before I decided to run. But I think the key point here is that Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is sort of the center of the global elite in many ways, and delivering a blow to them right here against Elizabeth Warren, I think is really going to help what President Trump is trying to do at the national level. The fight that's going on between the establishment and against Trump, I think is a historic one, and I think we'd really like to support that. And the fact that a entrepreneur, inventor, a scientist, not a career politician, is running against Elizabeth Warren is a significant one, because it basically goes back to the founders of this country. The founders of this country were not career politicians. They were soldiers, they were blacksmiths, they were artisans, they were entrepreneurs, and they really wanted to create a country for all of us. And what we now have is a forgotten people whose voice is not being heard. And by beating Elizabeth Warren right here in Massachusetts, I think we deliver a significant blow right into the belly of the beast.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw her recent comment calling the Republican health care bill a bill for blood money. Did you see that?
I saw that. This woman has no solutions for anything. It's purely just random attacks, and I really wonder if everything's okay in her mind, because if you read her attacks, it's all about spending money, ranting on what we're not doing against the Russians, and the use of allegory, which is about blood and et cetera. So I think the woman is actually off her rocker and is becoming unhinged, which is a good thing for us.
I completely agree. She's completely lost her mind. A lot of the Democrats really have. You're seeing this. I don't know if that's fear of them losing their command post that they've never really had, or it's fear that maybe there's some justice that might be coming down on them. But it really is despicable for these people, for Elizabeth Warren to come out and say blood money. I mean, again, especially in the midst of all this political violence being done against conservatives. I mean, Steve Scalise just gets shot. He was just released from the hospital. And, I will just say this. I really believe that, and I know that we discussed this, you were born outside of the country, but I believe that you would actually be president of the United States material. I mean, your resume, everything you've done, the views you have on this country, and to get you in to replace Warren would not just be getting a swamp creature out. I mean, I'm not just here to fluff your feathers. I think it would be great to get a mind like you in there, someone like you in there, an ideas person. I mean, for example, I don't think Elizabeth Warren has the capability to offer her lab for science to anyone. Does Elizabeth Warren have a lab that she's going to run the testing on the GMOs at?
I think what Elizabeth Warren has is basically the backing of the Hollywood elites and the academic elites, who really, the anger that we see from Elizabeth Warren and this quote-unquote liberal Democrats, the anger is not really against Donald Trump, but what he represents. He represents the fact that everyday people, the forgotten people, rose up and they voted for a guy who's actually done things. And that bugs them, because they've lost control over their narrative. And this is a fundamental, problem that they have. Getting to solutions, Owen, our campaign, by the way, we're coming to our end of June 30th deadline. Elizabeth Warren has raised close to $6 million. She already has a little mini war chest. We are out there doing, direct to people. So anyone who wants to support us, whatever you want to give, it's at shivaforsenate.com. But primarily, we are running our campaign as an entrepreneur would do. We're not paying high-paid consultants. We're not going to go do massive ads on TV, which we know most people do not trust TV anymore. Fox News, what Alex does is probably the last sort of beacon of truth that's out there, at least certain elements of Fox News. But our view is this campaign is really about winning the future for you, winning the future for you. What does that mean? as you said, Owen, my journey, you know, is very much akin to everyone who's listening's journey. It was my parents were poor, low-caste Indians from India. We came here. I came here as a 7-year-old, went through the public school systems of New Jersey, amazing public school, dedicated teachers, great mentors, great coaches, like every American out there has experienced. And that's what makes America great. I came to, fortunate to go to MIT, did a bunch of degrees, 4 degrees, got my PhD. But more importantly, I had the opportunity to create jobs and give back. And what we're seeing right now is we have, you look at the resume of Elizabeth Warren, you look at the resume of any of these career politicians, it's incredible that they go out there and have the audacity to say, I'm going to create jobs, I'm going to fix things. None of these people have done any of that. So I find it very hard that they could do any of those things because they haven't had any experience doing that. So I think the opportunity is one of the things, you know, when we look at this entire campaign that we're fostering, we want to bring a lot of people into this, Owen, even people in the Warren camp and the Bernie camp. People have been disenfranchised, have been completely sold out. Both of these people voted for crooked Hillary, completely. Hillary should be in jail. Sanders voted for her. I want to remind everyone listening to it, plus Elizabeth Warren. Both supported her and sold out their base. And one of the key areas we're looking at is clean food, clean air. Elizabeth Warren voted for the Monsanto Protection Act, which allows the executive division of this country, under Obama, Department of Agriculture, to overrule federal court judges who want to impose injunctions on genetically engineered food if they're found to be bad for us, which they have been through glyphosate, et cetera. So Elizabeth Warren, I'll repeat, voted for the Monsanto Protection Act. So all of you people in Hollywood who eat your organic foods in Malibu, all of you people go to the organic farming out there, know this candidate who you may have been bamboozled into giving money actually supported the Monsanto Protection Act. I, on the other side, my entire life has been spent about learning how you integrate traditional and Indian medicines. One of the key things we're looking at is we've actually shown, as Owen has pointed out, that Monsanto and genetically engineered foods actually hurt us, and we've shown that.
We'll be back with Dr. Shiva on the other side of this break.
Well, you know, Alex, I grew up in, I was originally born in India, and I came here. As you may know, Alex, India has a very oppressive caste system. So my parents had this very futuristic vision, and they made it out in there, and they came to America because the founders of this country had a very different vision for America, which was through your hard work, through your bravery, through your resilience, you created things, and that's what this country is about. Well, when I look, and the idea of the founders was that between us and our creator was not supposed to be monarchs or nobles, the priesthood. It was about us having a direct connection to our God and our creator, and that's what makes this country great. Elizabeth Warren and the self-serving elitists, Harvard and all these Ivy League institutions and the big institutions, fundamentally believe that they know better, Alex. And I know you know better. I know we know better. But that's a fundamental reason. So my journey as an entrepreneur, scientist, engineer has shown me that ultimately those people actually work for a living, produce things, entrepreneurs, people like yourself who create things are the ones that make this country great. People like Elizabeth Warren, the establishment politicians, the political hacks, they fundamentally add zero value. So I've been fortunate because of this great country, Alex, to have, accumulated wealth, been able to get educated. I could not have done that in the oppressive caste system of India. So I believe I owe something back. I love this country. And Elizabeth Warren is what I call the not so obvious establishment. When we look at the arc of political history, we have the establishment, the populist movement, those people on the streets wanting a better day for themselves and their family. Then you have the not so obvious establishment, which is what Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, these people represent. They speak a good game. As you talk about it, they're very, very clever with their PR, revolution, hope, change. But fundamentally, they want to suck out the populist movement and drive it back to the establishment. So as a student of systems, as a student of science, I fundamentally want to stop these guys. And more importantly, I want to drive a massive defeat to Warren. And I know I can do this right here in Massachusetts. And I think people like Elizabeth Warren need to be stopped. And I believe that I was, in many ways, my hardworking grandparents and my parents and this great country and the fathers of this country put me and gave me this opportunity at this point in history to stop someone like Warren to basically support this new American revolution.
Dr. Grip, you developed, and he said something to me that kind of actually creates a news story. To be honest with you, in my mind, he said, now I'd like to hear him clarify. He talked about how he's running his campaign from an entrepreneurial point of view, not wanting to spend a bunch of money on TV ads, not wanting to spend a bunch of money on advisors, this, that, and the other thing. So I'm just curious. So are you looking at, I don't know if you want to phrase it this way, I'll phrase it this way, and then I'd like to hear what you think. You're kind of looking at a low budget campaign. You're not really looking at it from the standpoint of we need to spend all this money on advertising and everything. And so what you're going to see here is if you're successful, and we're already starting to see this, but if you kind of dole it out to be, hey, you know, we're going to do a low budget campaign because we're not going to waste the excess dollars like the millions that the Democrats are on TV ads, on the advisors, on the this, on the that, on the lawyers. And now you have a situation where if you're successful at running a campaign low budget, I think that scares these politicians. I think that scares the mainstream lifelong politicians because that's their bread and butter, baby. That's their bread and butter. They need that big money campaign. You could smash that entire thing is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think, look, Owen, the opportunity here, you know, many of the businesses I've started, ultimately it's technology that brings, in many ways, levels a playing field. What you have right now is if anyone in the audience wants to run for office, they will right away get hit by the small clique of local consultants. I mean, we've been hit by them all here, all telling how they can do this, that for us, all attempting to essentially sleaze their way in to get their next gig. And as a part of that getting their next gig, they start convincing you how much money you have to spend. Part of what we're doing with this campaign is we're using technology, you know, modern technology, some of the stuff I've built that, in fact, technology that I did called Echo Mail, which actually helped the Bush campaign back in 2000, which we've advanced. So the issue is these tools, if we really want democracy, should be made accessible to anyone who runs. But what these guys do, they own their intellectual property of mailing lists. They own the intellectual property of technology and all the little methods on how you actually even get on the ballot. In Massachusetts, we have this whole delegate process that you even have to get on. And it's all controlled in little fiefdoms. And the reality is we're coming in as outsiders. We get in front of many of these town committees, and people are like wondering, where have you been? You're the only one who can beat Elizabeth Warren. And in fact, the establishment is getting very, very concerned about it. But it's very exciting because what I see happening out of this, not only are we going to beat Elizabeth Warren, but the tools and methodologies we create, we want to give them back to the people on how we won. Because we need to really completely revolutionize the way these campaigns are run. To your point, Owen, it's a rigged system, and Elizabeth Warren is part of that rigged system, and establishment politicians are part of that. And none of them ever talk about any significant issues. Yes, we need lower taxes. I mean, this is duh. That's all they do, lower taxes, higher taxes. If you take the situation all over this country, which President Trump is starting to address, same situation in Massachusetts, that's this situation, and we have a solution for that. For every 17 skilled job openings, Owen, only one skilled person can show up. Think about that. We have millennials who are listening to this. Many of you know you have $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 loans that somehow you were bamboozled to go to college, take quote-unquote student loans, which never went into your bank account. They went into the pockets of your university officials. And then you graduate, and what skills do you have? You're not even employable. And what we've done in America is created an uneducated or educated bunch of idiots in many ways. Unfortunately, that's what's happened in this country. And many of those people, millennials, are waking up and they're saying, why did I do this? So one of the big opportunities is going back to the good old days of how work got done. You did apprenticeships, which President Trump is promoting. Here, we believe we need to unleash vo-tech schools. In many ways, the school I went to, MIT, was really a high-tech vo-tech school. We need to make sure people have skills. If we don't do that, you know, they're going to go to China and other countries. And that's the fundamentals of increasing the economic base of a country. You need skilled people. The other piece that we're talking about is we need to unleash technology. You look at the way in Massachusetts, Owen, what's phenomenal is at the state convention, which is coming up in April, where they nominate their candidates, you'll be amazed to know it's still done all paper, which means the local politicians manipulate things, make things up. In the last state convention, as we understand, paper ballots were being shredded, things were being rewritten. This is how politicians are running it, as though they own the politics of what goes on and not we as people. So we don't really have democracy in this country, and Trump's winning was a big win for that. And my winning and us going on this journey together is going to be a big win for all of us. So we have to beat Elizabeth Warren. She's raised $6 million We want to raise more. We're doing it organically. We believe we can do it at 1/10 of which he's done it. So anyone who's listening out there, whatever you can give, $5, $1, go to Shiva for Senate and donate, because this is really about us, and this is really about winning the future for all of us.
Yeah, and you getting in there is a representation of us infiltrating that rigged system. You know, that's what they hate.
Exactly.
They hate the outsider even being able to get in. I think that they're scared of that. And, you know, Bernie Sanders tweets out this weekend saying, you know, why can't government come together on health care? As he's
a complete idiot.
Literally stealing money.
Yeah.
But they don't understand this notion, and it goes along with what you were saying about the higher education in America failing right now. People don't even understand. America is kind of running into a shortage of doctors right now, all right?
Exactly.
This whole healthcare thing, this whole magical unicorn healthcare plan that you think everybody can just go to the hospital, see a doctor, and get healthcare is completely ludicrous. We don't have the doctors. If we had an excess of doctors, maybe we could solve that problem. That is not the case. Final words from Dr. Shiva.
Yeah, I think you said it. You know, Elizabeth Warren's out there talking about healthcare as a human right. What's a human right is choice. The reality is, because of the Obamacare bill, tens of thousands of doctors have gone out of business. The private practice where your doctor sees you, looks at your hands, looks at your tongue, that's where healthcare happens. Most of those doctors have gone out of business and have had to join large hospitals. And we all know, you go into a hospital, there's a 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5 chance